I don't think
it's not. I don't think we're not live yet.
Even if we
here we are.
Broadcast, it doesn't start until the scheduled time. Is the message that I'm getting. You will not be visible.
I see. The broadcast has started. We're now live. That's apparently what I'm being told on my computer. So, welcome everyone. I am getting started here in just a few minutes. So thanks for the early birds who are arriving early. Okay, if folks can just type in their names and where they're calling in from into the chat box, that would be great, so we could know where everyone's calling in from. I think we're all set. And I saw Shasta was on. So Shasta, thanks again for all your work in putting this together. I do just want to confirm that we are live with the breakout session on the virtual platform. I'm pretty sure we are, but if someone can confirm that with me, that would be great. Okay, Shannon, I think I'm assuming we're live. We're being recorded, so everyone knows that. We're definitely being recorded, so let's keep it clean and present great information in a very polite way. But we do look forward to a great discussion with you all, talking about the resources that CARB and Ntaa have been putting together for California tribes. Really excited about getting some information out this week. So we're going to get started in just a minute. I did want to just point out I'm pretty new to this virtual platform, so I'm still learning, but hopefully it's easy for everyone. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat box. That would be helpful. And we'll be hearing from some folks. Again, you're invited to type in your name and where you're from and what interests you may have or what questions you may have regarding this discussion today. It's not too formal, but we do want to just make it helpful for everyone. So we're right about at the top of the hour. And just want to appreciate everyone's time for making time for us today. So I'm going to get started. This is a workshop for California tribes to access some important resources in the state through the California Air Resources Board. And Ntaa has been really happy to help pull this together for folks. I'm going to show today's agenda on screen here. So this is your welcome and introductions. I'll be your moderator for today's call as well as a presenter. Then we're going to hear from Shannon from CARB. Really great. It's been great working with her. Then we'll hear from Mariah Ashley, also with Ntaa. And then I'll go over a few of the specifics on this policy resource kit we have for you. And then we'll be hearing from some other folks at CARB, Linda Cedillo, Christina Eviciera, and Shannon will follow up and get us started on the open discussion with our remaining time. So at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to Shannon.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Is at least everyone that's, yeah, great. Okay. Thank you for having us here today. It's an honor to be here virtually. Very excited. It's too bad we were not in Lake Tahoe, but still very happy to be on the virtual platform. I just wanted to start by giving just a quick overview of our agency. I work for the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. We're the lead agency in the state for climate change programs and overseeing all air pollution control efforts. Some of our main duties include setting the state's air quality standards, identifying pollutants, especially those with the greatest risks, such as like diesel exhaust particles and benzene in gasoline. Also, we measure our progress in reducing these pollutants by using extensive air monitor networks. And then we also verify automakers' emission compliance. We do research on the causes and effects of air pollution. And then we also study the costs and benefits of pollution controls. And then, of course, we, which everyone's aware of, we lead the efforts to reduce climate change. So next, I'm going to just provide a quick overview of who from CARB is going to be speaking today. And then I'll hand it over to the next speaker. So we'll start out with Linda Cedillo. She's an air pollution specialist of the Community Outreach and Enforcement section of the Enforcement Division. So she'll be discussing CARB's SEP process and how to get listed, a project listed. Then it will be Christina Ecavera, and I think I messed her name up, and I apologize if I did, Palencia. And she's an air pollution specialist of the Climate Investments branch of the Sustainable Transportation and Communities Division, and she's going to be discussing funding opportunities through the California Climate Investments. And then finally, I'm a senior attorney and tribal liaison for CARB, and I'm going to just provide a quick overview of a document that we created that identifies many other mobile source and funding opportunities. And some of these opportunities are in multiple different categories, but I'll just provide a sort of an overview of the document, and that is available as well. So I'll move the next person. Thank you.
I believe that is myself, right?
Yeah, go ahead, Mariah, and please introduce yourself, and I'll get to the PowerPoint up.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Mariah Ashley. I am a Ntaa person living in Flagstaff, Arizona. I'm also the Ncaa program coordinator. Thank you for joining us here today. I'll explain a little bit more about what is Ncaa. Next slide, please. So the Ncaa was formed in 2002 with a grant from the U.S. EPA Office of Air and Radiation. It is the nation's largest membership-based national association that partners with 153 tribes across Indian country, including Alaska Native villages. Ncaa is unique in that it is governed by an executive committee that includes 2 representatives from each of the 10 EPA regions and Alaska. And if you are curious about becoming part of the Ncaa as a principal member, Ncaa bylaws state that any federally recognized tribe may become a principal member so long as a letter or other formal indication of intent from your respective tribe is submitted. However, if you are not a federally recognized tribe, you still may join Ncaa as an associate member, which are for individuals and organizations. It is free to join and there are no membership fees or dues. However, by joining, you become one of the many voices that help promote tribal sovereignty, build nation-to-nation capacity, and contribute to advancing healthy air quality in our communities. Next slide. So who is Ncaa? Ncaa is supported by 3 staff members from the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, Arizona. The Ncaa EC and staff also work with a policy advisory committee that consists of policy and technical experts to craft policy resource kits, white papers, and other policy support. These PRKs alert Ncaa member tribes and other tribal air offices about important U.S. EPA and federal agencies, their proposed rules, and provide tools for tribes to use in submitting informed comments on U.S. EPA actions. So down below those pictures are a picture of our EC taken back in 2019 during the National Tribal Forum on Air Quality. In the middle is a picture of myself, Andy, and our other staff member, Ryan, and Sadie. Sadie's my dog. And and our some PAC members at another NTFAQ event. Next slide. And here is a list of our executive committee. Again, there are 2 representatives from each region, and more information on them can be found on our website. Next slide. And one of the great things about Ncaa is we have these work groups. We have 3 ongoing work groups that regularly meet each month to provide updates from Ncaa and EPA for Ncaa members and those who wish to participate. The work groups are the indoor air quality, mobile sources, and wood smoke. The indoor air quality work group includes with indoor air quality in tribal homes and other buildings. The NTAA IAQ work group strives to help promote indoor air quality in Indian country by developing policy actions on IAQ issues. The Mobile Sources work group was formed to address pollution and emissions issues stemming from transportation and other mobile sources. And lastly, the Wood Smoke Work Group aims to provide educational resources on wood burning stoves and best practices for wood burning in general. The work groups are led by one EC member and one staffer. For more information on our work groups and when to join, you can visit our website or email myself or Andy. Next. Ntaa Partners. So tribes play an important role in protecting the nation's air quality and are recognized as co-regulators along with states and the EPA. Tribal citizens are often disproportionately affected by air pollution, while their tribal governments play an increasingly valuable role in controlling and reducing pollution and its adverse health effects. NTAA partners with the U.S. EPA Office of Air and Radiation, Mom's Clean Air Force, the American Lung Association, the National Associations of Clean Air Agencies, the Tribal Air Monitoring Support Center, the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals, the California Air and Resources Board, and the Tribal Healthy Homes Network. NTAA seeks to build partnerships to advance clean air and mitigate climate change throughout Indian country. So we're constantly seeking partnership. So what are we doing? Just last month, NTAA invited all 574 federally recognized tribes to participate in a baseline needs assessment of tribal air quality needs, issues, and priorities. The information provided by tribes will help enable NTAA to comprehensively describe tribal ambient and indoor air quality, which will be used to identify the range of tribal air quality needs and priorities and build tribal air quality management capacity. Although it is voluntary to participate, all voices in Indian country should really consider the positive impacts this could have on tribal air quality across the country. The deadline for this baseline needs assessment was now extended to Friday, December 31st. Next, NTAA partnered with CARB and the California tribes to release a new policy resource kit for California tribes to help access CARB's Supplemental Environmental Program. And to speak more about the impacts of CARB SEPS PRK is Andy Bessler up next.
Great, thanks, Mariah. So yeah, usually NTA, and as a reminder, my name is Andy. I'm the director for NTA. I work out of Flagstaff, Arizona with Mariah and Ryan. And Ryan did a lot of great work on this, but wasn't able to attend today's session. But usually NTA puts out policy resource kits for tribes, and these are really, as best as a toolkit can be, what we can offer tribes to help them access either comments to EPA or other federal agencies. But this policy resource kit is really focused on helping tribes submit a supplemental environmental project to California through CARB to apply for a settlement that CARB has to enforce the Clean Air Act and other federal and state laws. And oftentimes a defendant will participate and fund a SEP as part of the corrective action, as part of the enforcement. Right now, CARB only has one approved SEP from California tribes, and that's the La Jolla Band of Luisinho Indians. So we made this PRK through the process of talking with both Frank Spurgeon from La Jolla, but other tribes in California, including NTA's current and recently EC members that have left. But we've had a really good working group to develop this SEP, and we released it yesterday. So it's live on NTA's website, and there's a basic fact sheet here that you can access, and there's also the actual PDF of the SEP that La Jolla submitted. There's also a few other examples here of approved SEPs that are great projects. And then, of course, we provide 3 different template documents that tribes can use. These are all projects that are essentially within the criteria that a SEP most likely would include. There's a corrective action on cleaning up emissions through several different projects. One is minimizing asthma triggers. The other one is a tribal microgrid and EV charging station pilot project. I was listening yesterday. There was a great session on microgrids. So I think that's a really viable project. Also, we have a template document for a tribal green roof project. So these are three kind of off-the-shelf projects that you could take and edit the template document to make it relevant for your own tribe. Also, part of the requirement that CARB has is that you submit a budget for this SEP. And so they were nice enough to put together an Excel spreadsheet that is a good template for setting up a SEP. So all these documents are on NTA's website right now. And we're happy to talk more about that at the end of this workshop. But really, what's next for NTA? As I said, we do work on national level policies coming out from EPA, and we try to encapsulate a holistic picture for tribes in the status of tribal air report. So we come out with this every year. This 2022 status of tribal air report is going to be important because it'll have the results from the baseline needs assessment that is currently underway right now. So we hope to have some really good, solid numbers of what tribes are doing around the country with their air programs. Also, as Mariah said, the Wood Smoke Work Group has been active in publishing a white paper, and so that'll be coming out probably next week. We're also tracking several EPA actions right now, the EPA 2022 to 2026 strategic plan. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past several years, you realize that there's been a big shift at EPA. And so this strategic plan is a great document to see what they have coming up in the next few years, and more important, can participate. Also, we're looking at EPA actions on the PM and ozone NACs. There's several different policies that will be hopefully coming out about that. We're also tracking proposed actions by EPA related to methane emissions from oil and gas operations, and also probably a sector-wide climate action to reduce greenhouse gases from power plants. We're expecting a sector-wide look at reducing greenhouse gases. But keep your fingers crossed, that's yet to come. Finally, we do want to keep this process going for improving this policy resource kit for California tribes. There might be additional projects that folks may want to get a template created to cover. And we're very excited about the partnership with CARB and making sure that we can help provide access to California tribes to access the great programs that CARB has. In addition, I think one of the important things is that, you know, NTA works nationally. So this, I think, will be a good model for folks who are just interested in doing some pilot projects and may have a set program in their own state. We've certainly urged the Department of Justice to look at this model and have the DOJ have approved SEP templates that might more easily engage with tribes at the national level. So that's what we have coming up. And here's our contact information. And we're happy to answer any questions after the CARB presenters. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Linda for the next part of our presentation. So thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, give me a second just to share my screen, please. Oh, I think you're still sharing.
Oh, I'm going to stop sharing. Sorry.
Thank you. No worries. You see my screen now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So again, my name is Linda Cedillo. I work with ARB under Enforcement Division with the Community Outreach and Enforcement section. And I'll be providing an overview on CARB STEP program, including our STEP policy, proposal, and funding process, a bit of the current outreach activities, and a quick update on our performance. CARB STEP policy was updated in 2017 in response to AB 1071 and to provide a greater structure to the STEP program. In addition to outlining the required and preferred proposal elements on this slide that we use to determine a project's eligibility, there's a STEP policy that allows for community-based projects to be funded with up to 50% of penalties received during settlement of enforcement actions. This also outlines the STEP project categories and the responsibilities of CARB, the violators, and STEP recipients. Through a public and continuous solicitation process, the policy prioritizes funding of projects that are located in disadvantaged communities. Project categories similar to other videos include pollution prevention, reduction, environmental restoration and protection, education and compliance training, community monitoring, transboundary projects, and others that can be approved on a case-by-case basis. Again, similar to other videos, we accept proposals from responsible parties, public entities like air districts, community groups, and tribal nations, and we make an effort to prioritize projects developed by or in coordination with community groups. Applicants can either submit a proposal online through Cal EPA's website, or they can contact the CARB STEP team directly to obtain a copy of the proposal form, which will be shortly uploaded to our website as well. And you can submit it directly to us. Once we have a proposal, it will be reviewed for completeness, visibility, and compliance with the policy, and we'll brief the executive office to recommend those projects that are eligible to participate in the program. A few important things to note here: we accept proposals year-round. Eligible projects remain on the available STEPs list until the project is fully funded. And if a project is deemed ineligible, we can still work with STEP proposers to submit a revised version and be considered again. In terms of some of the key elements required to deem a proposal complete, additional to the basic scope of work, budget, and timeline, we ask for an applicant description of experience with similar projects. If there are any community partners or contractors, they should be listed as well as their roles, and the environmental issues to be addressed, as well as expected benefits for the community. So once a proposal is approved as eligible for listing and funding, like how does it actually happen? So there should be a settlement between CARB and the violator. A case investigator will present a list of eligible steps for the violator to choose from. If they decide to participate in the program and fund a step in lieu of a portion of their penalty payment, they can choose to either fully fund or partially fund one or more steps, depending on the amount available. CARB will then notify the step recipient of the potential funding source, while the investigator prepares the settlement agreement between the violator and CARB. The STEP team will prepare a STEP oversight agreement that's between CARB and the funding recipient, which outlines their obligations. Once both settlement and STEP agreement are fully executed, the violator directly transfers the funds to the recipient within an agreed timeline that's included in the settlement agreement. And as soon as the funds are dispersed, the STEP recipient is required to begin implementation of the project. Once the project receives funding and begins implementation, the STEP recipient is required to submit quarterly reports and a final report once this project is completed. So the quarterly reports must include key activities, results, and expenses, report details that match the proposed budget. Final reports must include a narrative of successes, challenges, and benefits of STEP implementation, and an evaluation of the project's objectives and outcomes. Finally, once the project has reached its end of implementation, all the reports have been reviewed and approved, then the SEP, it's considered closed out. We want to briefly share with you the program statistics over the past 5 years. We have not updated to 2021 yet, but this is up to 2020. The program has been slowly but surely growing due to ongoing efforts to improve and streamline the proposal submission and funding process. We went from $1.8 million allocated to 3 legacy steps in 2016 to $6.8 million and 18 steps funded in 2020. The SEP team has been making continuous effort to improve awareness about the program, both internally and externally with communities across the state. Within CARB, we're continuing to build relationships with case investigators and working to improve the resources available for them to make the program more accessible. And that's pretty much it that we had to share. I'm not sure if we're taking questions now. I heard Andy said that that's going to be until the end of presentations.
Correct.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Christina, pick it up.
I think Christina
you're
is
muted.
still on mute.
Yeah.
I believe I'm up next. I'm about to share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see this all right?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I hope everyone's having a good conference, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Cristina Chiverria, and I work with the Climate Investments Branch of the California Air Resources Board. So you were pretty close, Shannon, and I appreciate the very solid attempt. And today I want to talk to you all a little bit about California climate investments and some of our programs. So quickly, what is California Climate Investments? In short, we're a statewide initiative that puts billions of cap and trade dollars to work by reducing greenhouse gases, strengthening the economy, and improving public health and the environment, particularly in disadvantaged communities. We funded over 740 transit agency projects, as well as preserved or restored over 659,000 acres of land. And notably, 51% of our funding benefits priority populations. Now, something to note is that the definition of disadvantaged communities, which is used to determine priority populations, is currently being updated by Cal EPA, including a proposed change to facilitate tribal inclusion. So I'll be sharing an opportunity to inform that a little later in the presentation. So right off the bat, the best place to learn about all things California climate investments is in our website. And today what I want to do is go over some of the relevant resources that are housed in our website. And what I've done is I've hyperlinked just everything that I can within this PowerPoint so that folks can go back, reference it, of most interest to them. So the first thing to know is that our website is organized by audience. And so that means that you can go to our website, go to programs, and then find a page that is specific for tribal governments. And once you click that, it'll show you all of the funding opportunities available through California climate investments that tribal governments are eligible for. So one thing that I want folks to know, though, is that while I'll largely be referring to tribal governments today, tribal-led local businesses, nonprofits, and tribal members are also eligible for a lot of our programs. And so they would come here to programs and select whichever category applies to them. So a nonprofit, a business, individuals. So know that while I'm talking about tribal governments, we do have a wide suite of programs that covers a much broader range. So let's jump into what you'll find when you visit the Funding for Tribal Governments page. You'll see a few key resources right at the top. And one is a fact sheet, which I believe Shannon has posted along for inclusion with the materials for this presentation. And this fact sheet is something that's easy to print, easy to hold, and it will list out and give a brief overview of all of the programs that California Climate Investments offers that tribal governments are eligible for. On the webpage, you'll also find summaries of each program, and it'll link you to where you can learn more about any individual program if you're interested and want to do a little bit of a deeper dive. So one thing to note is that the fact sheet and program pages will give you an idea of
all of the programs California Climate Investments offers, but if you want to look at specifically just the opportunities that are currently open, I would recommend the Funding Wizard, which is a search engine that is housed by CARB. Now, another resource that I really wanted to share with folks is the Funding for Tribal Governments webinar that we held on July 7th, 2021. And we have the recording as well as the slides linked here and posted on our website. But what we did in that webinar was we presented the current and upcoming funding opportunities, as well as timelines for when you can expect future funding opportunities to go live. So maybe spring 2022. And a great part that we really liked about the webinar was that we got to have some tribal grantees come in and speak. So we had 29 Palms Band of Mission Indians, which is a grantee for community air grants, one of our programs. We had 2 staff join us and give a presentation on their experience getting that grant and maneuvering that grant. And in addition, we had a speaker from the Big Pine Paiute tribe, and actually saw Cindy Driscoll introduce herself in the chat. So she is an expert, and she is leading work on a clean mobility options grant that they received. And so she was lovely and absolutely gave us a lot of great information during that webinar, and we really encourage you to check it out. I'd also mention that Clean Mobility Options is a pretty special program because they do have a tribal set aside. So just a heads up about that. Since the presentation was 2.5 months ago or so, a few things have been updated, and I've put in a couple program updates here in case anybody is interested in any of the programs that have quickly approaching timelines. First, the State Water Efficiency and Enhancement Program, as well as the Healthy Soils Program, are expected to open any day now. The Ideal ZEV Workforce Development Program is now open, and if you apply to the Community Air Grants program, then there is a grace period where folks are able to update their program materials, and that is until tomorrow. So if any of those are of interest or apply to you, please just note those updates if you go and visit the presentation slides. So next, I wanted to share a quickly approaching opportunity for input on an effort coming out of Cali, PA. So you'll find that many of our programs particularly encourage participation from priority populations. And for us, priority populations means disadvantaged communities and low-income communities. And this is an effort to make sure that we're investing in communities with the greatest needs. Now, the designation of disadvantaged communities is led by Cali, PA, and they recently released some proposed changes. And one proposed change that might be of interest is that they've proposed the inclusion of all areas within federally recognized tribal boundaries in California. So 2 workshops are going to be held very soon to discuss this proposed update. Both are next week on the 26th and 27th, so Tuesday and Wednesday, and the registration is linked here for both. And if you're interested in being a part of the conversation but can't make those workshops, I also want to let folks know that there's a public comment period open now until November 16th, and you can send comments to comments@calipa.ca.gov. And so if you want to learn more about, what priority populations are and what they mean, I've linked here some of the resources on our website. And here you can learn about why we prioritize priority populations, why we believe they're important, how they're determined. And you can also look at a map to see which areas under the current designation qualify as priority populations. A few other resources that I wanted to leave is a link to our project profiles page, as well as a project map. So you can see examples of projects that have been implemented across the state using California Climate Investments programs, and Community Connections, which is a directory meant to facilitate partnership development between entities that are interested in California Climate Investments programs. Okay. Lastly, I really want to emphasize, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can stay updated on program updates by subscribing to our newsletter, which is linked here, as well as connecting with us on social media. Please feel free to email us at info@caclimateinvestments.ca.gov with any questions. You can also give us a call. And if you want to reach out to me personally, if you want to reach out to a person with a face who you've seen and heard, my email address is right here, and I absolutely would look forward to answering any questions or supporting in any way. So with that, I think I can hand it off over to Shannon so that we can start some of the discussion bits. But please feel free to voice any questions, anything that I can clarify, or any additional resources that I can help connect you to. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to share my screen as well. And it just might take me 1 minute to. Okay, hopefully I'm sharing the correct thing. So a question came up previously, about, well, where do we find all the information on CARB's funding opportunities? Just because CARB has a huge website and there's many, many different areas to look to find things. And so one of the things that we created was this 6-page document that's an overview of a lot, not all, but a lot of CARB's programs that have grants, incentives, and other funding opportunities. Specifically, it has a lot of the mobile source opportunities, which, as many of you know, the Daimler funds may go into existing programs. And so there may be more money in some of these mobile source programs. I just want to point out a couple for you. Everyone's aware of the Carl Moyer program. That's one that's sort of been existing for a very long time. Also, just to know, on this page, it has all the websites for you to just, click on to find the information on these programs. Some of these programs are implemented by air districts and some are implemented by CARB. I tried to note which ones were implemented by air districts versus CARB. But as was previously mentioned, the community air grants, that's a very big program that has a lot of different tribal interaction and a lot of tribal involvement. There's also the low carbon transportation investments. And of course, what was previously referenced was the clean mobility options voucher pilot program. And then there's the sustainable transportation equity project. Another one that's sort of big for mobile sources is the hybrid and zero emission truck and bus voucher incentive program. So what this does is provides a voucher, so that way if you are going to purchase a zero emission clean truck or bus, it reduces the cost, so it's not so onerous on folks. And then there's also the off-road, the core program, the clean off-road equipment voucher incentive program, which is similar to the HVIP. And then there's also a clean vehicle rebate project that gives up to $7,000 to purchase or lease a new zero emission or plug-in hybrid vehicle. So those are just a few things. There's also the farmer program for agricultural equipment. So that's another big program. And of course, this also has the SEP stuff on there, and it also has the VW stuff on there that everyone's sort of aware of. But yeah, this has already been downloaded to the website, so I hope everyone has access to this. If you do not, I'm going to put my contact information in here, and please contact me, and I can send an email with this. And I think that's about it. If anyone has any questions, I think I'm going to hand it over to Andy, and Andy might do some concluding remarks, and then we'll open it up. But again, I just want to say thank you for having us here. CARB's very excited to be here.
Great. Thanks, Shannon. Can folks hear me okay? Great. Well, that concludes our presentations. We'd be happy to engage in a discussion. I know there's been some comments in the chat regarding the funding development wizard. So I definitely think CARB has some great resources, and Shannon, thanks to you and your team for getting those resources out to folks. We do have that on Ncaa's website, and happy to answer any questions. Please enter your questions in the Q&A box or the chat box. But I do know
What's a question in the chat, Andy?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Mariah.
From Leroy Williams, he asked, or they asked, so where do tribes fit in this picture? Want to answer that?
Well, yeah, Shannon, go ahead.
Yeah. So in terms of where do tribes fit into this picture, the purpose of us attending this session is to let tribes know that there's funding available. So really the goal is to get tribes more acquainted with our programs and the availability of some of these funds, so tribes can actually start utilizing some of these funds, and we can have a larger tribal participation in these programs. And there's a few that where our participation is growing, but there's a few where there's no participation. And so the goal in sort of having tribes fit in is to actually get funding. Yeah. So, and of course to collaborate if there are any issues, barriers, those types of things. That would be another good thing, is to sort of collaborate with tribes on what are the barriers.
Yeah, and I think, speaking of kind of how tribes relate to states, there's a really broad spectrum of how states will deal with tribes and vice versa. I think CARB really does provide a good example for trying to engage with tribes at a more programmatic level. And I know that's what we've been trying to work on. Okay, so there is a question from Mike. I have a question that is not related to funding, but thought this panelist might be able to help. Mike Schaefer from the Middletown Rancheria of Pomo Indians. Our local Lake County AQMD collects great air quality data. However, there is no EPA Air Now monitoring location in our county. Why doesn't the local county's data feed go into the EPA Air Now feed? That's a good question.
Good question. Sometimes I think it's the difference between the monitors. So I think the US EPA monitors have certain requirements, and so one of the things I would think about, and I don't know what the monitors in Lake County are, and I'm not suggesting that they're not sufficient, but sometimes it's just that the air monitors, they're not the same, and so they don't actually translate.
Yes.
But I don't know if that's the issue. Yeah.
Well, and what a great opportunity, Mike, to have a tribal air monitor join the Air Now network there. So if you do a QAP, quality assurance plan, and get that monitor data up to par, I would urge you to contact your Region 9 Tribal Air Coordinator. With them about this situation. They might be able to help you get something on Air Now. For sure.
And I if I could just point out one other resource, and I'll put that resource in the chat. But I do know CARB does have areas where I think tribes may, or in the future, may be able to upload if they have air quality data. So I'll put that information in the link as well.
Great. Okay, happy to answer any other questions. We still have a few minutes left here.
Can I circle back to Leroy's question really quickly? Well,
sure.
This person asked a question. I think that might have been a follow-up to me mentioning Cali, PA in my presentation. So Leroy, feel free to tell me that I'm wrong if I am. But so Cali, PA is creating a designation for disadvantaged communities, and they have a designation and they are updating it. And the proposed update includes areas that are within federally recognized tribal boundaries. And so that connection is that it is a new dimension of that designation that is being proposed to be incorporated. And the workshops are to solicit feedback prior to any finalization that happens. So in case that was a follow-up to that.
And I have a follow-up to that. Did you say someone else had a follow-up?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. I have a follow-up to that as well. And just so you understand sort of the background is that because Cal EnviroScreen does not, it utilizes federal census data, because of that, a lot of tribal data isn't actually captured by that. And so the result is that oftentimes tribes are left out of some of these funding opportunities that they would actually qualify for if the data were actually there. So that's sort of one of the things that Cal EPA is thinking about and trying to remove one of those barriers that exists.
Okay, great. We do have a few other comments. I see, Cindy, you mentioned that Big Pine Paiute has received a couple of these program funds and can help provide guidance if you want to let her know. And Robert also recommended a contact in the Air Quality Analysis Office for Region 9. And then I included the two, there's Northern California and Southern California tribal air coordinators for tribes out of EPA Region 9. So yeah, those are great contacts to keep. I would also point out, if everybody has on their desk this big report here, the Status Tribal Air Report.
It's upside down.
Is it upside? But no, that's artistic. That's part of the artistic of the. It's a great report and has a lot of great data on what's going on in Region 9. There's some Region 9 specific stuff in here, so I would urge you to take a look at that, and it's on our website as well.
I also wanted to point out too that we do Ncaa. We have this weekly update that we send out every week on Wednesdays that just have a list of resources available that tribes can use, and it's a great resource to get notified and to also share with others. And oh, sorry, if you want to join that listserv, you can just email me, mariah.ashley@nau.edu. I'll put it in the chat, and then you can just say like, hey, I want to be on your weekly update, and I'll add you.
Great. So as I mentioned in my presentation, we are going to have another call with California tribes. All California tribes are invited on November 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern, or sorry, Pacific, obviously in California. So we'll have that call on November 17th, and we'll continue to talk about our resource kit for tribes, see how we can build on it. And hopefully here, I am kind of curious, because there was a large $100 million settlement coming from the automaker Daimler Mercedes-Benz going to California. We've been tracking that to see, how California tribes can benefit from that settlement. And so we do urge you to keep up to date with CARB funding, because you might see a bump in existing programs from this settlement. And you never know, there's always bad actors out there. So there hopefully will be future settlements to restore justice and fund some of these SEPs that tribes can get into CARB. So we do hope some tribes take advantage of this toolkit and get a supplemental environmental project application into SEP. And Linda is right there ready to help you every step of the way. The budgeting process can be a challenge, and Mariah and I can help as well with the template documents provided. So we do have a few more minutes. Mariah, anything else in the chat that needs recognition besides yell out for electric buses?
Just that there's like a lounge, I guess you can join within Excel events. This is a really cool platform, by the way, but there's a lounge people can join and just like talk about more things. Cindy did ask, Andy, what time is the call on the 17th?
It's tentatively planned for 1 p.m. Pacific. But if folks want to move that time or there's something else happening in California, happy to shift that time.
And remember, daylight savings time ends on November 7th.
Thanks for the reminder. Yes. Okay, Shannon, it's been great working with you and your team. Is there any other closing thoughts you want to make?
No, other than I just I encourage tribes to reach out to all of us. I put my contact information in the chat. and Christina's and Linda's contact information, if you could put that in the chat as well. I know Christina's is on her PowerPoint, and Linda's might be on her PowerPoint as well, but if not, maybe we could put those in the chat as well. I would just like to urge tribes to apply for some SEPs, apply for some of this funding. I think it's complicated because there's so many different funding opportunities, but there are funds available and tribes are eligible, and so hopefully, at least on the SEP front, the templates that you've created, Andy, and just thank you for that, because I do think one of the barriers is, if tribes have a lot of different programs that they're implementing, and it's difficult to put a lot of time into applications, especially when you have competing things that you have to do. And so hopefully this will streamline things a little bit for tribes. It would be really nice to have every tribe in California have an air monitor. Maybe that's a SEP idea. Anyway, I just want to thank everyone for listening to us. If you have any questions, or if you have any follow-up afterwards, feel free to reach out to myself or Linda or Christina. And again, I want to thank you, Andy, for collaborating with us so much. It's a pleasure working with you all as well.
Great.
So.
Okay, and just the fact that if you do want to join our next call on November 17th, feel free to contact me. I can tell you that Cindy Smallwood from the Jamul Indian Village, who's our new primary representative for the Ntaa Executive Committee, did a good job putting together a list of a lot of environmental staff for tribes in California. And so we'll be emailing that list probably tomorrow with an invitation to this call. So feel free to contact me if you don't get it, or you just have some more questions. Otherwise, I'm showing about 45 seconds before this session ends. Again, want to thank the speakers from California Air Resources Board. Thank Mariah for her work in getting this policy resource kit together, and Ryan Sinjini, also Ntaa staff, who couldn't be here today, but put a lot of legwork into putting this resource kit together for folks. So I do want to thank also Shasta for her work in putting this conference together. I agree with Mariah, this is a great platform, and it's been great getting your attention and time. This concludes this session. Thanks, everyone. Take care.